Hello viewer, Lorenzo here, welcome back to KSP to Mars. We have episode 59 here. It's going to be quite a list of episodes, and we will be working today with the lessons we have learned in the past, courtesy of crashing ships and dying Kerbals. Lesson 1. Never launch your ship even if it's a fusion ship with empty fuel tanks. Lesson 2. Never take along impossible to use fuel. Never take along fuel that you cannot use. In this case, oxidizer. Lesson 3. Get science. So, what we're going to do today, we're going to get science. I had a look at the R&D station. We have 750 science points in the bank. And if you might remember, we need 1000 points to unlock better radiators and better electric generators. Now, that might not sound very sexy, but the problem is these generators are very inefficient. Look at that. Efficiency 28.7%. Efficiency of the generators is dependent on the core temperature of the reactor and the temperature of the radiator. You want the reactor as hot as possible and the radiator as cold as possible so that the gradient is large and that will generate energy. You also want the efficiency to be high because then you make less waste heat, which in turn makes the radiators be cooler, which in turn allows you to, well, be more efficient. So that's all good things. But this 1000 science point node, it improves the radiators by orders of magnitude. Same deal for the generators. Well, not orders of magnitude, but like 2 or 3 times better. This means that we can build fusion ships that can sustain the laser to fire the fusion drive, which will make everything a lot easier and will allow us to, well, make many more landers and awesome missions. Now, what we have in the capsule here in science is 87 here, 28 here, and another 89 here. Works out to about 180, about 200 science points. So we need 50 more. If we take this home to Kerbin, let's have a look at our Kerbal alarm clock. The transfer window for that opens up in a year and 93 days. In that time, and especially taking into account the time before then it actually gets to Kerbin, our laboratories will have generated some science and the Uranus probe will have arrived, generating more science. So that those two things will unlock the next science node, and then we can make a new ship, or at least more and exciting things. And I'm thinking one of two things. Either just a straight up fusion powered skyscraper type ship that will land in one piece. I mean, if we can sustain the fusion reaction, sustain the laser that initiates the fusion reaction, we can have massive landers, and that's of course a good thing. Number 2, with these big reactors, big generating capacity, and the radiators to keep them going full time, we can have big motherships with massive beamed power arrays that can then have beamed power landers. Because if the mothership carries the transceiver, then of course there's no dealing with interplanetary distances. It's just the thing is circling overhead. Well, the whole circling is then a problem in and of itself, because, well, if it goes over the horizon while you're still landing, you're out of luck and you crash. But that can be mitigated with satellites. This new technology will unlock those kind of tricks. So rather than keeping this guy in orbit and sending another fresh lander from Kerbin, which was my other option, I'm going to send this one home. Before it can do so, it has to wait a year and 93 days. And before that is going to happen, I am going to shut down the fission reactors here. That way, they won't waste all their uranium waiting. Well, they still have quite a lot of it, but there's enough tritium. Where is that? Here we have enough of it, and just pissing away the fuel in running the radiators is, well, that has never benefited anyone. So Carrick, out you go. Let go of the space station. The space station, well, it is a space station now, why not? Let go of that and go on over to the fission reactor here. I think Kerbals on EVA can shut them down. Yeah, manual shutdown, there you go. And I hope we can also initiate them again with the Kerbal, I think so. Here we go. Manual shutdown. And that means that we are now, well, not quite yet, because they take a while to cycle down. Wow, he's happy. he just pushed the button on a nuclear reactor. That makes Kerbals happy. Well, that's good to know at any rate. Have we got an EVA report from here yet? Yes, we did. the Prometheus is now in hibernation mode. Go on, board. And well, its power will now gradually run out until, well, it's time to power up again in a year and 90 days. Kerbals, I have found out, are also pretty capable of going into hibernation mode. This is no problem for them whatsoever. Let's see, what shall we play with while we're time warping? I think it's going to be the Photon Sailor. Our solar sailcraft that is inching its way ever closer to the sun can always use some more time warp. Let's see. Here we have it. There goes the big sail. Let's see how well this is working out for us. I'm going to point it retrograde. Get the alarm clock with it, just so we can see what's going on. And punch that time warp. And, well, halfway through its orbit, of course, retrograde is no longer retrograde, because it will have shifted, so we'll have to readjust that. 40 days have passed though, 50 or so that is time proceeding quickly. Oh, and now we have to change orientation again. And by doing this many times in a row, we might be able to get the periapsis low to the sun. I'm thinking when we have the new and improved fusion drives, or even maybe the old Prometheus can be repurposed for this, we can take a crew to visit Venus and Mercury, and that would be exciting. So let's time warp that further. Oh, I'm now increasing. How am I increasing the periapsis? By light sailing towards the periapsis, toward the retrograde direction. That should still decrease the periapsis, even though I'm doing it from this altitude. But it is increasing it. I don't know how, I don't know why. I still don't quite understand the logic of the solar sail and its orientation. Because now we are decreasing it again. Well, now we're increasing it. Oh dear. His logic would say that it works a little bit like a regular sail, but it doesn't quite seem to do it. Or I have to warp in such small increments that, well, basically it's not useful time warping at all. Anyway, that's 0.3 of a trillion miles eaten away again, so it's a little bit closer to the sun. And we have expended no fuel, of course. That's the big thing about the solar sail. Right on. Just waiting for the planets to get into a proper alignment. Look at that. I think if we just keep it like this, it will slow down more than it will decrease more than it increases. Anyway, we are up to the transfer window for our Duna to Kerbin transfer. So, and that of course is actually Mars to Earth. So we can revisit the Prometheus. Here we go, that's the pocket reactor. Prometheus is here, and we are cheerful today because it's a year and 100 days ago when we lost our brave lander pilot. We have commemorated his death, his sacrifice, for naught with a ceremonial birthday cake. And we told his family nothing. They are anticipating his return, because doing anything else would be a PR disaster. Here we have the Prometheus again, and Carrick and Gusry are happy as ever, whether that's because their brains have eroded or for some other reason. Maybe it was the birthday cake. We don't know, so let's do this reactor trick again, but in reverse. Oh dear, I hope there's no startup time of a few weeks. Manual restart. I hope that's just instant. I know the shutdown takes a while to do it, but I hope the startup is instant, otherwise we're going to miss our window. So, the control rods are being modified. Neutron moderators are slammed into place and the reaction starts up. Now he gets to go back inside the capsule and start the fusion reactor as well for that little bit of extra power. Actually, in this configuration, most of the power is coming from the fission reactors. The fusion reactor wasn't even strictly necessary, but you know, it's a fusion reactor, so we like it. Activate that reactor. These are operational, 25%, and ready to go. Wonderful. So, let's see about making a transfer back to Earth. And I think it's a good moment now to mention all the stranded things around Mars here. We have the laboratory that's orbiting in the hard to reach orbit. We have the care packages, we have some satellites, and well, it's just space program mismanagement, really. They don't find the time or the resources to do anything with those things because they're in stupid, dumb orbits. Maybe that can be fixed when we get better fusion drives, but that's what they've been saying for the past several years. Let's have a look. How is that encounter now? That's not really good. Oh, come on, alarm clock, shut up. So you have the pleasure of watching me make maneuver notes. I'm sure that's very exhilarating. And we need to, of course, meet up with Kerbin. Yeah, there we are. And there we go, a wonderful encounter, and we can fine-tune that on the way. It's a 2.1 kilometer per second burn. This is very modest. And I will take care of that, and I will see you when we're back around our home planet, Kerbin. No! Before that happens, we'll have the Uranus probe. That was one of our first missions ever. It's been en route for almost a decade, and that's about to arrive. So, yeah, before that happens, I think at least the transfer back to Earth will take more than 211 days. Well, either one, you'll see it in, well, 5 seconds. And here we are, exactly 5 seconds later, back in solar space and headed for home. Our Kerbin Earth periapsis encounter, the Earth encounter, is scheduled for 319 days from now. Now we'll want to do a mid-course correction because our periapsis is quite high, 860,000 kilometers, which, well, it's almost a million, pretty high, 3 times approximately the altitude of the moon, so we will want to shave that closer to Earth. But first, we will have the Uranus probe arrival in 208 days, and I think that's a good moment for a final course correction 100 days before that. So let's switch to this one and check out Uranus. Or, as Neil deGrasse Tyson diplomatically called it in his Cosmos show, Uranus. No connotations there. Uranus. That was very elegant, I thought. This is the ship. It is positively ancient. This is one of our first interplanetary probes. These solar panels here were about the first thing we had that were my sentencing structures are breaking down. These solar panels were the first means we had of powering a craft through the many decades of flight. You will notice no gravioli sensor because, well, we didn't have it. Instead, we have 4 goo canisters, 2 materials bays, and a temperature sensor, and we have some fuel, so we can do orbital changes. Let's have a look at it. We have 866 meters per second worth of delta V. So let's have a look at our trajectory. It's been a decade, and we are coming in for a periapsis of 5 million kilometers. Let's see if we can make that better. And if we can, I hope we can, because that would mean that we get to, well, go closer to Uranus and get more science, because, you know, we live for the science. So let's see, what kind of course correction are we looking at? We're still looking at several hundred meters per second at most, which is something we can just sort of do. So yeah, I want to be on the plane. 2 million. Let's see, we are now looking at 1.5 million. Let's go this way a bit. This is just trial and error. 700,000, wonderful. And the frame rate is very good out here in the far reaches of the solar system. Maybe because everything else is just offloaded and abstracized, or I don't know how this game does things, but yeah, 700,000. I want to get it like to I don't know 5 kilometers so that we make a real nice and close pass over Minimus. Look at that. We are going to get a weird gravity sling. Whoa! This kind of plane change is so unbelievably expensive. Awesome. That's wonderful. Yeah, it's not useful, but we're getting, I don't know, many kilometers per second of free delta V, and you know, we're not going to use it for anything useful, but hey, might as well just accept that. There's no method to this madness, by the way. This is just pure trial and error, just dragging on the buttons and seeing what happens. 900 kilometers. Wow, that's good. Ooh, that's an impact trajectory. 2,000 kilometers. 200 kilometers. Let's go with 200 kilometers. Or could there be an atmosphere at that distance? Yeah, there could very well. Let's go with 1,000 kilometers. I think 1,000 kilometers will be good. So, activating this probe, it has been many years. We have electric charge, we have control. Wonderful. 321 meters per second. We are still 200 days out from Uranus, so we can make these kind of corrections. And that will bring us very, very close indeed. The temperature sensor, of course, we can only do that when close to the planet. For the high spaces of the celestial bodies, the temperature scanner doesn't want to do anything, and we get to do, well, a materials bay for both high and low, and we get to do, well, 2 goo canisters for both high and low. I'm not sure if that's going to run into diminishing returns, probably, but then again, we don't really mind that. This is a very, very old probe. The science experiments are still in tip-top condition, and afterwards it can finally go to rest. This is the relic of our interplanetary probe exploration program, which has been scrubbed years ago, but it's just a few scientists in dusty buildings that are now manning this program, intercepting the faint radio signals. Look at that, the sun is just a smidgen bigger than the rest of the stars, and, well, quite marvelous how far away that is. Let's light the engine, and let's do this. Full throttle on the nuclear thermal rocket, and let's just remove the maneuver node and just observe the periapsis. I'm going to throttle back because this is rapidly approaching Minimus, Uranus, of course. Ooh, I wonder if they didn't rescale the planet itself, Minimus itself, but only its collision mesh. Going this close might present a problem. Then again, we'll just have to see what happens. We'll get the science from the high space for sure. Oh wow, it will still take again. It will again take 100 days from the sphere of influence to the actual getting close there. So, yeah, we will get 1 dose of science, and then we get to focus back on our intrepid boys aboard the Prometheus. 900 kilometers, and I think what this is trying to say is that the gravity assist we're going to get from that will push us out of the solar system, and we will burn the last of our fuel at that point, just to, you know, add to that wonderful velocity. We can ditch this maneuver node. This is now worthless. We are just going to zip forward to this sphere of influence boundary in 208 days. Oh, what? We do have to orient ourselves in such a way to the sun as to still get power. I saw the electric charge there dwindling. That's of course not good, because we want the charge to be full, so that we we can transmit our findings home. I do hope these solar panels are still generating. It does say 0.0 energy flow. I hope I haven't just broken that by activating the ship. It would be a damn pity to have this thing enter the lunar sphere of influence and then just die because it ran out of juice. That's not very nice. It does look as though it might be doing that. How is that happening? Come on, solar panel, you've worked for a decade. Don't give up now. Maybe we just have to focus something else. If that's the hack it takes to make the solar panels work, I'll gladly do that. We'll focus on the defunct Saturn Science probe and use that for time warping the Uranus probe to its boundary. I don't know why the solar panels... I've had this before where they just don't generate anything anymore. And of course that can be surmounted by using either beamed power arrays or RTGs, none of which were available at the time of launch of that Uranus probe, and I want its science. I wanted science from that far out celestial body. Look at that. We are just mere days away from that monumental sphere of influence crossing. Right on. That should now be there. Jump to the ship and let's have a look at it. Hopefully its electric charge has now not depleted. It has not, wonderfully enough. Somewhat jinky there, but yeah, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to make these probes function. Right on. Are we now well inside its sphere of influence? We are, and the trajectory calculation is going completely bonkers, and it has changed to 9,500 kilometers. That's fine, and it seems as though we're entering hyperspace over there, which is also fine. So, let's do science then, shall we? Materials bay. Oh, that is so disappointing. We get 20 science by that, and I'm going to transmit this with the engine firing, because otherwise I think we're going to run out of juice. The sun is just too far away. Look, it's we're even in the dark, even though we're facing the sun over there. It's just too far. Okay, I want to burn prograde, I think, because I don't really want to burn for burning's sake, but you know, I have to generate some power while transmitting. What does the goo? 12 science from the goo. Oh my god. This is Minimus we're talking about, and those science values might make sense for the stock game's easiest celestial body to get to, but for a decade-long science journey on this probe, color me disappointed. We are getting 32 science points home. Oh god. Then again, we needed 50 extra above the payload of the Prometheus, and we still have our laboratory, so we should still be in good shape. But nevertheless, that is most assuredly disappointing. So, let's aim prograde there. Just a blip of throttle on the engine, and let's review the data, transmit in home. Yes, yes, I want to transmit, and I want to reduce my throttle as well. And this one has to be transmitted also. Is it in fact transmitting? I think it did. And yeah, something is happening with our periapsis. That's still 100 days out. It's now time to switch back to the Prometheus. I'm going to make an alarm. And then I'll switch. Oh, I don't have to hit anything. I can just make the add alarm. Periapsis. Last hurrah. Add that alarm. Wonderful. Now we're going to go to the Prometheus. Jump to ship. I'll make a course correction there, and I'll check back with you once we are in Earth's sphere of influence with this magnificent fusion-driven starship, full of a little bit of science. And there we are. The Prometheus is on an intercept course with Earth. Even better though, it's actually a impact course, and of course that's the best kind of interplanetary approach you can have, because from the edge of the sphere of influence it takes like 10 meters per second to tune that into whichever orbit you would like. So those are my favorite ones. The Uranus probe is estimated to reach periapsis in 99 days, so let's go ahead and time warp forwards until that point. Let's see if it has remembered. No, it has not remembered. I did the last course correction on the lowest throttle setting. Here, I'll show you. It went something like this. And if you put the throttle this low, you get 2.2 million seconds of specific impulse, granting you 51 kilometers per second still on a very, very low amount of fuel. So with this thing, the DT Vista inertial fusion engine, you never really run out of fuel. Running low just increases the amount of patience you need to finish your burn up until infinity, pretty much. So fortunately I'm just about at 30% patience, so it's not too bad yet. But you can squeeze out as much delta V as you need, really. So with that said, let's time warp forwards to that Uranus encounter, and just a few days later our good friend the Prometheus will show up home. Wonderful. I'll reduce time warp a little bit to make it easy on the Kerbal alarm clock. Poor old boy. I can't pull that off. I can't speak British. I can't do it. So 13 more hours until science. There we go. Let's just go ahead and switch to that one. 20 minutes till periapsis if it hasn't crashed yet. Ooh, it's starting transmission now. That means that I should light the engine. Oh, look at that. It's a massive Minimus. That's interesting. Ooh, it is generating electricity, but not a lot. Let's observe the materials bay. Oh, this still counts as high space? No way! It's still a while away from the actual periapsis. Ooh, look at that orbit. Oh, has this kept the stock Minimus definitions? That would be a pity. 20 minutes out, we can time warp forwards. We won't run out of juice in 20 minutes. Look at that! It's massive! This mesh scales relatively well. I mean, of course, it doesn't look like Uranus at all, but it is pulling off a credible, massive space rock look. And of course, the Minimus we all know and love is very, very tiny indeed. But just imagine, we're higher over it than the Moon orbits stock Kerbin. We're about the altitude that the Moon orbits stock Kerbin over Uranus here. So look at that being massive. And I think in the grand scheme of things, no, the game doesn't count 11,000 kilometers as close. It's odd, because around the Earth it does. It counts everything up until like 30 to 40,000 kilometers as close. And this planet is many times larger than the Earth, but I have a feeling that a little bit of Minimus has remained in the real solar system mod here, because the science amounts are low, the altitude definitions are definitely low. I mean, you would have to get to like 10 kilometers, which is not really doable with a planet like this. You would hit one of the mountains, because they're scaled up as well. They're thousands of kilometers high. Yeah, so that's not really working out so well. Anyway, Minimus would probably have given us like 4 science, so we're just going to repeat the mystery goo and, well, transmit it home for 1.1 science. Chin up. We don't care. This probe was very much useless. Let's say it's a reflection of the budget. No, we're going to keep this, and this is going to be a mission to retrieve this science probe if and when we ever do get a warp drive. If we do, the mission will be to retrieve this science, and that's a pretty much impossible mission. This is I think this is our fastest spaceship ever. Look, it's beelining it out of the solar system. Let's zoom out more and see how far away that actually is. Look how far out that is. What do we have here? This is some orbit of a craft that is... This got the Saturn gravity assist, and this one is getting a Uranus gravity assist, and it's just completely zooming out of there. So if we ever do get warp drive, we're gonna try and catch this science. That's a fun goal, I think. Anyway, back to Prometheus, which should be just about... Oh, we're throttled up, not that it matters. This ship is officially dead. Jump to ship. I think that's a good... If we ever do get warp drive, we're going to retrieve all these things. All the people that are stranded, all the probes that are zooming out of the solar system. Yeah, that's a good mission, a good goal. And of course we still need a base on Mars. Yeah. And how's that going? It's not going so well. So, on course for Earth, let's do the good old time acceleration and say hello to home. I think this is the first ship that has ever come home in this fashion after saying hello to Mars. If we could land it, we would probably get a lot of science for, you know, returning a ship from Mars. But, you know, the Prometheus is not going to land. It can't, because it can't sustain its engine. It would be hard. Ooh, this is an important alarm, so I will be going away, and you will notice exactly nothing of this, because the video will resume pretty much immediately. As promised, a moment and a click later, here we are in, well, it's not quite low Earth orbit, we are in an orbit of 2000 kilometers by 1200 kilometers, so it's just a little bit higher than your run-of-the-mill low Earth orbit mission, and, well, we're not going any farther because we're out of fuel. We have 4.3 units left, but they are concentrated in one tank, and much as I try, I cannot equalize that, because look, they transfer in the blink of an eye, faster than I can press the buttons. I know there's a mod that does this, but for the 4 units to equalize that and squeeze another 100 meters per second out of this ship, I'm not going to bother installing that. No, what we're going to do instead is launch a shuttle mission that will pick up the science, transfer one of these crew members back to Earth, and top up the Prometheus, which will then carry on a mission to sample the solar environment. It will pretty straightforwardly burn retrograde, make a close swing by the sun, and then meet back up with the Earth. That's the plan anyway. This is a nice mission for this ship because it won't need to carry any payload, minimizing the stress of well, the pulse propulsion concept, which requires me to do many dozens of pulses for every significant delta V maneuver. This is the reason that the videos have been a little bit slow. Well, I've only missed one day, but these videos with the very long duration burns, they take me a long time to do, well, causing there to be less videos, and that's of course not good for anyone. So with this science, assuming it makes it down safely, and the science from the research stations, we should be able to unlock the better generators, the better cooling radiators, and that will allow the construction of a second generation fusion ship that will, well, be capable of constant burns, allowing us to unlock the solar system even more, even faster, even better. To see what I've got in store for that, check the next episode. This one has run on quite for a long time already. This one has run on quite long enough already. That's what I was trying to say at any rate. I'll launch the shuttle and I'll start the next episode when that's just about to dock and return to Earth. So the whole launch will happen between episodes. Thanks for watching today. I'm Lorenzo. Leave a comment, a like, a favorite, a subscription, whichever button you prefer. Just pick one. Check back tomorrow or whenever I'm done, possibly day after tomorrow. It's getting a little bit busier for me, but check back soon and see what happens with the Prometheus, its spin-offs, and of course the Kerbals that are bound for certain no, not certain doom, exploration and greatness. See you later.